pretty sure we're in Vance or something this case. No, Weston. I'm putting up Weston.
I have Vans.
Are you wearing them?
Yeah, huh? I have
I
Vans.
don't have Vans. Not right now.
I
Those
have
look
Vans at my
exactly like
house.
Vans.
They're not.
What is this? Just keep climbing?
Just keep
Yes, it
climbing.
sucks.
Just keep climbing. Oh, I went on a ride that felt like that.
No, wait!
Yeah, it's Cody.
Wait! Wait!
It's Cody. You guys were bad mouthing Link and now he's winning.
Also,
Hey, Tommy! Come on, man, don't shove.
Pharaoh.
Incoming! You guys have weapons? Yes. What, you don't? No!
No, he needs one.
Oh, I dodged it. No! You almost just killed yourself. Okay, that was mean. I'm gonna kill your family now. Ow! That hurt.
No!
Yay! What? Pokemon Go! Oh, get out of here.
Go, Pokemon, go. Get out of here.
Hi, you have a flower, you're dying. I'm not here. I'm too short. I'm too short to die.
Got you. Right, say, got you.
No!
So what?
No, 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 no! Yes, you saved me. You saved me. No, don't poop me out! How do you like these?
Hey, no, no, no.
Bye! I just committed suicide.
Oh, no way, I did that.
Permit.
Come on, come at me, bro. Come at me.
Oh.
Park your poop car in the parking lot and sing, bro. What? How did I die?
Because you're dumb.
You're dumb.
Oh yeah. Hold still. No, hold
No.
still. Hold still.
Stop! Stop!
Got him.
No! What the heck?
Hi, buddy.
Did you write that?
No.
I was wondering where that came from.
Hey, I will murder you. Keep back up.
Ow! Hi.
Aren't you writing something on the board?
Yeah.
Did you see his
Hi,
back
buddy.
skateboard?
Yoy.
Oh.
Who could write
Yes.
Yes,
that?
it's
Skateboard.
Snipe.
No, it said you got a snipe.
Choice. No, no, no.
That's how I died.
Yeah, I win. Daniel, what was that?
Bro, that's game's not for Yoshi. That map is not for Yoshi.
Oh yeah, that's a rough map for anyone without a triple jump.
Or how Kubi would say a 20,000 jumps.
Where are your chicken bakes? Daniel, where are your chicken bakes?
But I do make French toast sticks.
Hey, look, do not start down.
No, I do make French toast sticks.
Hey, don't press that. It is. Put me Yoshi. Put me Yoshi. No, hey, put me Yoshi. Put me Yoshi.
Hey, Daniel.
Put me Yoshi. I
Wait,
buy
you have-
something.
Wait, you have autocrops? I'll get an autocrop.
Oh, that's only if you bring your rival.
Wait, I brought my Bible.
My phone is
place to play in my uncle's house is fine. Someone get next to her. Hot sucker. Why don't we
Hot.
just play here?
Hot sucker.
Yeah, why don't we just play here? Cause that's one. Cause that's like once a month. There's no one wants to do it. Or we could just play after service. Yeah, you wanna wait a whole hour? Or we could just
Hey,
go.
hey, what's up, baby?
Or we could just go into service.
I'm good at Yoshi.
Yo.
Get Yoshi!
She's goaded.
Get him! You just killed
Or on
Guys,
Saturday
write
night.
something.
No, no, don't kill yourself. No, I'll save
Right,
you.
sorry,
Well,
I'll
sorry.
save you.
Saturday night is open. Here.
No, I'll save you. No!
Good morning.
How are you
You're here at first service. That's exceptional.
Why'd you just kill yourself?
I don't know
Is
you.
that 'cause the time changed?
No.
You're dead.
No, stop cooking me.
Stop pooping me out.
Sports. Remember when we
This is my
most of the time changes? Service.
Come on. I was just about to blow everyone up.
Hi.
Seriously.
Bye. Hi. Bye.
Hi. Let's go, Yoshi. Everybody team up on you.
$9.
And stop pooping me out!
Pencil?
Yoshi,
You want me to sharpen it?
Yoshi, you just.
Don't press
There's
that.
a sharpener right here.
Who pressed the middle button?
Someone unpress
You
the
did.
Stop.
That was hers.
Let's play.
Stop.
Weston.
Who died?
Yoshi
Go over
died.
there. Go over there. Go over there. Stop. Seriously, what's
Weston, stop.
Ow. Hey, we get it.
Don't
We're
worry about
locked
day
in.
2.
You're dead.
Actually, we have a pretty big first service today.
Yes, it is.
Michael, stop smirking. You know what real
Hi.
first service is like.
Thought you were dead. Not yet. Stop twerking.
Yeah, it's called a mess. Color part inside of the pencil is called a mess.
Yeah, you can't get me. Ooh.
No!
Did you bring it around? Oh, it's a shark. Don't get it back. It's so weird, man.
Hi.
Uh-oh.
No.
Did someone just win this?
Yeah. No, we've got 4 more lives.
Wait, what? How many lives is this? 7.
6.
You don't want to
Oh, this
put
is-
a little smudge on your line?
What do you make for the
French toast.
Yum, 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 yum.
For you.
Yum. Yum, 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 yum.
What?
Yum, yum. Yum, yum, yum.
Hey, Seth. You know what a trivia
I
is?
had
You can
one.
have some free French toast.
Ow.
What's going to kill you?
That's not very much.
Yes.
Double hammer? What? It's double hammer.
A water pump?
No. Yes.
Did you win the lottery?
No.
The lottery?
Come here.
I don't want you. I don't want you. You can't kill
I don't
Silverman.
want
Okay. First time I ever saw one of those.
Go away.
I think it was in like the 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah, you're dead.
And my sister made me one.
Ooh, I got a nice zero. No. I got a nice zero. Yum, yum, yum.
Yo, why?
Because you got a nice zero. You better run.
Why do you have it in your mouth? No! Why do you have the lightsaber in your mouth?
Gosh, you're scared. Hey.
Run into the barrel.
Ow. You're screwed once I get that. No, no. You don't know how to drop weapons, do you? No.
Ow! Ow!
Pikachu. Look at you in the background.
exactly. I can easily do this. It's easy. Get wrecked. You got wrecked? You.
I'm gonna make that on the floor.
I just said that. You got wrecked?
Gene, are you afraid of me? You sneeze.
The work sir.
You sneeze, I'm afraid of you.
You got wrecked?
Gene.
Wait, Daniel, did you take the dollar I gave you for the Skittles?
What dollar?
Did you?
I didn't take anyone's dollar. I took a 10 and made change for 9, but that was like
I did.
someone else's
I'm
Sour
not
Patch.
actually.
What? Buster.
There's a dollar right there.
I never took
Wait,
anyone.
wait, wait. No, no.
Who took it?
I don't.
Why would you leave a dollar by
I
the
need
way?
Kirby.
Oh, never mind. I got it.
I mean, seriously.
Okay.
I'll some
Alright.
Skittles, please. Yes.
Hey yo, hurry up.
That was a bet, by the way.
Some sort of like,
Thank you.
Hey,
Hey, buddy, buddy.
I should just give him
Who
one.
are you?
Give him one.
No, actually, no. That's pretty nice. Okay.
I love
Hey,
it.
Peach. Hey, you're gonna go over there, and you're gonna stay over there. No, come here. No. Bye bye. Bye bye. Oh, you still alive?
Not for long.
Sucker.
I got 4.
Kirby's in the
Bye bye. She can fly. I am coming. Bye. Stop.
Yeah, actually, stop.
Yeah, actually.
And Canada
What?
Please don't
Stop.
stop.
I'm impaled.
I killed him.
Stop.
What?
Stop.
You need to calm down. Stop calming
You
down.
don't stop. I actually don't speak.
You know my dad turns his pistol wherever he goes, right?
Sure, my dad said too.
Hey, Gene, you're not in a very safe place right
Everybody
now. I
should
need to
Yeah.
carry your
stop
pistol with
things.
them.
That's
If I were to drop something,
Bye.
just go
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. No,
My
no,
dad
no.
said bye.
No, you don't.
But she-
No. Ha ha. Bye bye.
My dad
Bye.
said, I had to watch
Bye.
it too.
Like Kirby smarts.
What do I open to put the songs in?
Open LP, it's the first icon next to the start button. It's kind
Okay.
of bluish.
That's
And
it.
got
That's
white
what.
stripes.
That's all he does.
Yeah, I know. That's all.
And then, that'll take a second.
There's definitely a fun right up there.
Ow! I got
So
hit.
big.
In,
Killed
I
myself.
got hit in the head with the mace.
The mates.
He said like finished it.
Wait, what? Why? Everyone team up on Mr. Game & Watch.
No, 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 no.
Team
Yeah,
up on-
Mr. Game & Watch has the most power-ups.
Go with
Kill
power
him.
ups. Go with lives.
Vibes, whatever.
Team up on Mars.
Alright. Wait, what?
No.
Bye bye.
Team up on Mars.
Nobody here is March.
Oh, where that kid is?
It's Roy. That's Roy.
Go for Roy.
How you thought? No.
Get over here, Kirby.
Go for Roy. Go for Roy. Vote for Roy. Vote for Roy.
Yeah, for president.
Hey, Pikachu.
To die.
I know Pikachu.
Hi, Kirby. You're gonna
He's
die.
supposed to die.
I'm gonna kill
Know your
Pikachu.
characters.
Stop
Yes.
fighting. I got force.
You guys are welcome to help yourself.
Ow! That hurt my face.
If anybody is hungry and hasn't had breakfast yet, you are welcome to some French toast sticks over
French
here.
toast.
French toast?
French toast sticks.
Let's go.
Let's start with 2 for first, and we'll see where we're at.
You could break my life. I already have. I actually died. Oh my god.
Whoa!
That looked real wrong.
You have some dipping syrup.
Oh my god, look at me. He's like, I can fight.
Oh, silly.
Why is Game
And
Watch?
we have this delicious 3-berry blend fruit syrup. Yes?
Stop this. No! Stop.
Does anybody else want French toast
Don't
sticks?
look
Should
at
I
that.
make more?
I don't play like actually Weston.
That's not me, look, player 4.
Bye bye.
Where Kirby?
I will kill you, Kirby. No,
Hey,
no, no,
please don't
no.
kill Cody. I like Cody.
Who the heck is
Oh,
that?
I like Kirby
Hey.
too.
Kirby.
Hey guys, come and get me. I'm down here.
Well,
He ate me.
it's the same food ingredients, just cooked in a different way. You just found your big sister? When did that happen?
Yeah, it's perfect.
I'm gonna guess you died.
Jane, do we have a baby?
Eat it. Yum 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 yum.
Who's the baby?
Wait, who? That? Like the kid?
Yeah, it's Godzilla. Whatever.
I wasn't talking about this monster.
It's from
Talking about the guy with the sword.
Oh, that's me, Roy.
Was that like the gender reveal
Who do you think it was?
And
Mark? No.
it was like
No, chill. I was fine in the corner with no one else, and I was lonely and I was happy. Now go away, and I
Lonely
will,
and
or I
happy.
will burn your booty.
Wait, what?
Bye bye.
it's like I wanted a girl.
That's kind of like what
I'm
Jane
just
did.
down here. I
Until
don't
Jane was a
whoever
girl.
comes and get me,
And
guys.
she just
Burn
got
your booty.
quiet.
That doesn't smell good.
Boys.
That doesn't sound good.
Room 4? I've lived in this kid.
I'm gonna blow myself up.
Who's flying?
You know that does damage to you.
Who's turn?
You know that does damage to
And
you.
he is.
You do damage.
But it's gonna be okay to have a sister, huh, Jane?
Why do you have my hair?
Because you want
Yeah, you just drop some more on your dress.
Give me my sword
Careful,
back.
hold that spoon
Press
over.
B. You'll get his hat.
Just down here. Just down here, dude. That's
Okay, off this head.
Oh, I'm gonna be that annoying
Hungry?
haunted. Bye bye. Gonna come get me this time?
Like, leave me alone.
Hey. No, no, no.
Where am
Hey,
I?
Cubby.
We haven't seen all enough friends.
Where
Did you
am
read the
I?
flyer?
No. I can't read it.
I refuse.
Bye bye.
No, I actually I don't know where I am.
Because I don't have any.
Bruh!
You could borrow Andrew's ridiculous overpowered one.
No, stop. What's it?
We don't got that.
Lester, hurry up.
This custom ones you ordered on the internet, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not terribly surprised actually.
Most of
He's not.
Die!
Hi, Cubby. These are all my num nums. Get away.
Up, down,
Oh, my
down,
nose.
up, move.
My num num. Yum 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 yum.
Ow.
I will num num yum
Well,
yum.
if you decide, you will find that bringing your own damage is not a requirement.
Get out of here.
No.
Let me num num. It is before surgery.
Well, technically it's not. It might take me forever to reach back.
What's that? Bye bye.
Yeah.
Where did it come from?
Yep, we made it. Just in time.
I'm gonna light it on fire.
I'll take it.
I'm gonna juggle.
1 second.
Yeah. Hey, why would you do that? That's illegal.
I killed.
I'll be this, I'll be.
Let me burn
Hey,
your
June, when we do
gosh darn booty.
church service, will I teach the kids to want to come over? We're gonna start in 50 seconds. But we're gonna do the music part first. Where do you want to be during the music part?
Yeah.
Come here. Come here.
No.
Never. To Daddy in the back where the computer is. For the
Yeah.
stuff. It's be back there because we're gonna start singing.
Yes.
Everyone's fine.
Hey, I wanna burn your booty. I wanna burn your booty.
No.
I don't think you should have.
Yeah, what's up?
She's out of
Hey,
check.
I just want to burn your booty.
Somehow I feel like Michael did you that. I don't know.
There you go.
I can get down to full size skateboard.
Jane will have a concussion.
Oh, okay.
She would not be dead from the She is too tough for that. You try to crack the safe. Sharpen your pencil.
Oh, I did that.
Why does
Well, I'm a pro.
Sharpen his finger off.
Okay, that's it. I'm gonna burn your booty.
How many times have you
Get
said
over
it?
here.
Is that the only thing you know how to
I
say?
wasn't
I'm
afraid
gonna burn your
My
booty?
goal was you.
Oh, that's it. I'm just gonna burn your booty.
Now that I think about it.
Michael, you gotta make this list. It's not so much about liking it.
It's being addicted in the
I'm coming for you, Michael. Michael, I'm coming for you. Very, very.
Ooh.
I'm burning your
fall in if I don't.
Burn your booty. So you want me to die?
No, but it's funnier. Please don't. Please don't. All of the don't. Every single don't.
What is the little kid thinking?
They're thinking they're going to die. And the teachers are thinking I'm going to die.
I'm just gonna kill you by grabbing you.
This is a new one. It's taunting. Kirby's actually bad. No way. No way. It's a, Kirby's OP now.
He's spamming.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this is the weirdest one we've ever seen.
What is what?
I thought you said you
You
gonna burn
lift the lid, and it
I
sucks
am.
in the water while the lid is in.
I'm gonna ultra boot his butt now.
Yeah, there's like a weird status thing, and it's like there's a white outline of the machine, and then there's a blue light of the thing.
No way. Kirby's going to
But there's not another blue light.
Kirby's going to
Last line of French toast.
commentate here.
Oh, I burn your booty.
Nope.
Oh, I burn your booty.
Hi, Jane. How's it
Jim
going?
Ross has one more burn his ass.
Alright guys, last 3 French toast sticks. Minimal order of existence. Those 2 start doing.
Oh,
Those 2 or that one, your choice.
I'm the color of the Dodita.
Alright. Put it on the controller.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike. Hey, guess what? Hey, guess what?
No, I think someone
Where's
missed
Yoshi?
that
Mike,
because
guess
it's
what?
like
You're off
the
the edge.
I mean, I saw
No.
there was not able to be.
You oh, sound. I'm gonna burn your booty.
I'm gonna burn your booty.
Burn your booty.
There's
Your
there's
booty
syrup
just got
and,
burnt high
maple.
sky.
You prefer syrup. Because preserve. Okay, let's do it the sound on you. We'll bring your things over there.
Burn your booty.
Was any of us actually made in China?
Huh?
What?
Was any of us actually made in China?
I am.
In China, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Not many times.
I'm Chinese.
That's really funny.
I'm very Virginia.
When I was really little, probably her age, when my little
I
boy
was
was
made
born,
at a fast
I
food
was
restaurant.
so like curious and I was like, I don't know where you came from.
Wow.
And
I
I
was
was
wacky.
to my parents.
Come here and I will put you.
Oh yeah, because I cringed.
I'll dust
We were watching a little movie too the other day. Party.
Oh, okay.
And the movie was just like the quietest movie of all time.
Hey, I'll
The
dust
sound was
you.
totally through the roof.
You wanna
It
be
was still
done?
barely audible.
Weston. I'll be
No,
crap.
Jane, you're not the sound before.
Weston. I'll be crap.
What happened at the party?
Oh, I know. We missed you so much. Thank you for the pie, though. You totally made the finish of the meal.
I was beating my guts.
Burn your booty.
Not a good time. Not a good time.
What party? Oh, that
so
one
we,
party on
we ate,
Wednesday.
we talked a bunch, we hung out, we played 2 big group games.
Burn your booty.
One was called Snack Attack, where I would stick up like this uber close-up of a snack
I'm
food,
diarrhea
just like the most
colored.
ridiculous pixelated close-up, and then for 10 seconds it would zoom out and become like the normal picture of the snack food, and then the screen would go out. And as a table, because there's like 4 tables of kids, every table had to try and write down within 20 seconds after it blacked out every word they can think of from the packaging. Every word.
Like Star Pack? Like Star Pack?
Well, it was just like all these different snack foods. I didn't do candy because I didn't want them to be able to look at the candy because they all had candy at that point. We just left bowls of candy lying around. So we did all these other snack foods like Flamin' Hot Cheetos and the weird little veggie ones. And most of them were Debbie's. There's like 15 little Debbie's things.
I'll burn your booty.
And so we like did
Get over here.
I did like the animal circus cookies, but I did it off brand.
My Jesus, my Savior, Lord, there's none like you.
So everything you wrote was like a bet. Because if you wrote down an erroneous
shelter blessing, bow in majesty, praise to the King.
And then, so that was fun. We added up all the points at the end, and the guys stayed on the back one because they were good betters. They didn't know the words most of the time, but they would only write stuff they were sure of. So like they never got that many positive, but they like they won the game. And then the other one was round relay, where we make two teams, they could run up to the table, grab a brown bag, whatever, no matter what it is. And then you're done, you give it back to the small team. Now, try to get their bags. And so you tap out that person's drum on their TV, and they had to sit there for 10 seconds while the other team kept What did you get, Peach? Just like straight. She got a zip line. Like this. Okay, are these your 3 songs that are in here?
Yeah.
Okay. I can show you the list, but it was basically the food list. And then Ashley and Christine came up. But like, no one besides Ashley and Christine came that wasn't on the food list. So if you ever look at the food list, it's on the food list where it was full. And that's it. And then we have Michelle and Darius. So we had like extra 15. Yeah, nothing.
Daniel, do you want me to cut it down to 2 because of the time, or you?
Yeah, just the service. We'll start quicker next service. Alright, everybody, grab a seat. Can someone turn off the lights? Get us down to light switch number 3.
I did it.
Back off! For all you guys.
No, you're close, but that's backwards. Leave on just number 3 from the left.
Just eat that food. Yeah, you probably.
That.
Yep, that's perfect. I swear it is so funky when you tell people about light switches. Like they can't not count from the door. Like I always want to do left to right because it seems more natural, but every time I do left to right, people do the wrong light switch. Hey Michael, you don't live behind screens.
He thinks he's invisible.
He's
We can see your short.
Invisible.
We can see your shoes.
No?
You need to paint them like, what color is the rod?
This is a big first service.
It is. It's because of the time change.
Oh,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
true. I thought it was 9 when I was 8.
How'd that feel? That extra hour.
I felt nice.
Yeah, the extra hours.
Does anybody want to open us up in prayer?
No,
It was very loud. Anyone?
I know Weston.
I feel less than.
How about you?
Was you?
I
You're
was the
supposed to
guy
vote
that burned
yourself.
out booties.
That's how it works.
You're not supposed to vote for other people. You're supposed to volunteer.
I nominate you.
Okay. That's fine. Thank you, Lord, for this morning. Thank you for all the people here. Thank you that we get to gather in your name and praise you and just learn about you. I pray that you would speak through Daniel today as he reads from your word, and that you would just help this to be a time of worship, both in song and in our actions. I pray this in your name, Jesus. Amen. My Jesus, my Savior, Lord, there is none like you. All of my days
to each other, you can just scoot further apart.
Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name. I'm found in the desert place, the walk through the wilderness. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering, though there's pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name, Jesus. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Thank you, Lord, once again for this time that we have. I pray that we would just open up our hearts to you. Amen.
Yes.
Thank you, Elise.
Oh,
She'll get the lights.
Jane, I can't stand it.
Not the lights. They
No.
go behind me.
Give it off, please.
We're vampires.
I like the dark.
I don't like pitch black, but I like dark.
No, not the lights. Ah, it's a bad.
It's gonna kill me.
Not gonna go get a Bible like this.
Vampires don't eat French toast.
Well, I do.
Hey guys, vampires aren't like weak to interior lighting.
Well, I am.
That's not a thing.
I am.
That's not a thing in any movie or book or any legend.
It's only if it touches his
It's the
skin.
sun.
You're
Literally
the son of your dad.
Wait, what?
What?
That was really profound.
His dad
I
is
thought it
your
was
son.
son of a mother was goat. Okay.
Have you been watching Tim Hawkins?
Who's Tim Hawkins?
What's that?
How do you not know who Tim
Who's
Hawkins
that?
He's the guy who came up with Son of a Motherless Goat.
Oh,
Son of a
no.
motherless goat?
He didn't.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
Son of a motherless goat.
He just said it in
Just
one of
because people
his-
say things doesn't necessarily mean they came up with them.
The son of a
I
motherless
came
goat,
with
right?
the word.
I
Fart
came up
knocker.
with the
You
word
guys are all-
belly
land.
You guys are all
Love nugget.
fart knockers. You know that, right?
Yeah, when I get
Like
when I get angry, I go, "What the fluff nuggets?"
Shut the front door, fart knocker. Come on. We
Alright,
need to be
take turns.
serious.
Why is my shit so
Time
shocking?
to look into our Bibles.
Why are your
I have
hands
my
so
Bible.
sweaty?
Biscuit.
Why
My
do I-
Bible's name is Jeffrey.
Son of a biscuit. Son
Oh,
of a biscuit
is it
eater.
Bible?
That'd be much easier if you had a Bible.
Alright guys, we are actually,
Oh, are you doing
we're gonna do an odd translation again today. So hard.
What's that?
You look at me, Bible.
And this is
Toad blossom.
that's all from the ground.
B-I-B-I-B. Yes, that's
Ah.
for me.
Sorry, kid. Take it.
The fluff nugget.
See, son of a
Just sit on his lap. He's gonna be your Santa Claus.
Oh my goodness, no.
Same
I
shit,
want a
same shit,
unicorn.
same shit. It's the same shit.
Hey
What?
boys,
Nah,
your joking
It's
is
the
out of
same
hand.
shit.
No, it's not. You made my chair warm.
You
You
made my chair warm.
literally sat on it for like 20 seconds.
Let me
It
throw
was
this
already
away,
like
'cause it's all
warm.
from before.
Because it doesn't like your butt.
They sell one.
What do they do?
And then next day you're gonna find gum under it again.
Oh yeah, I found gum.
Alright.
And I was like, I can't find it.
Close thy
Yeah,
lips.
right.
And
Oh,
somebody
yes,
here
I-
tell me what last week's Genesis
think I found
16 was
I
about.
wasn't here.
But there's gum.
If your lips are open, get up and move now. No time. No waiting. Move.
I think there's gum.
Your lips are open. Get up.
I was
Move.
just talking. I
And
was talking to you.
Pick a new seat. You pick new seat. Go that way. And also you pick new seat. Go that way. Go.
Go, Coco.
There we go. Keep
Oh,
going.
that's good.
Thank you.
Loco. And then, are you guys speak down to church?
Anybody remember last week in Genesis 16?
Ooh.
I was here, but no.
Do you recall?
Yes.
What happened?
Those 2 wives and 1 dude.
And how did that turn out?
Horrible.
Horrible.
Pretty bad, right?
He couldn't
Ever
keep
your
up
dad
with
choose
them.
your wife.
It wasn't a keep up question. It was a question of jealousy.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So, does anyone remember the people's names? Who were the 3 people
Oh.
involved
Hagar.
last week? Hugar, not quite. You're close.
Hagar.
Hagar and Sarai and Abram.
You
Okay.
said 1.
Was this the one?
No, I said 3 people. Who were the 3 people involved last week?
Oh.
Wait, I
He
can't.
nailed it. Don't knock him. He
Wait,
got it right.
I can't remember. Is this the one where like he gave the Egyptians his wife and
No.
then all that
Hey guys,
stuff?
you gotta stop switching seats.
Or was that 2 times ago?
No, it was just last week.
Oh.
It was just last week. So then Hagar runs because it turns out Sarai can't handle it. Hagar didn't handle it well either. She started being mean the second she got pregnant. Sarai started being mean as soon as she realized, wait, I'm still in charge. And then Hagar left. But then God stops her in the middle of the desert and says, hold up, Hagar. I actually have plans for you. Hey, Jane, what's up? I got them. They're over there. I set them down for you right by your drawing stuff. So now you can draw and eat raisins and pistachios. It's like her favorite thing in the world is raisins and pistachios.
I took it.
Raisins are cheap, but pistachios?
Oh,
They're not cheap. Especially since her tiny fingers can't crack the shells open. You have to get like the pre-shelled ones.
I hate it when
Or else you have to feed her, like, you know,
I hate when
one pistachio at a
pistachios are
time.
mixed together.
That's annoying. Anyway, but yeah, you get the
Yeah, I
shelled
know.
one, she's happy.
Have you ever had pistachios that the whole shell's like together?
Oh yeah, yeah, and then you like break half your teeth out trying to get it open. Totally.
The first time I just ate the whole entire thing.
Dude, they salt them while they're in the shell, so like even if you have to use your mouth to get them open, it still tastes good because like the shell's been salted.
yeah.
Genius, whoever thought of that one. Okay, so today we are moving past Hagar and we are getting back to Abram and Sarai. And it's interesting to note this week what happened last week in terms of failure. What was the failures last week?
Everything.
The
They
dad
didn't
chose
talk
the
to
wrong
God.
line.
Everything.
Obviously everything is true, but it's not very specific. So help me out. What else went wrong last
I
week?
wasn't here last week.
Yeah.
So Sarai told Abram to sleep with Hagar,
Yeah.
and then
That went wrong.
Sarai blamed Abram
Yeah.
because
We're cheating on her?
Yeah. Well, no, not cheating. Just literally that now wife number 2 is mean to wife number 1. So wife number 1 is blaming the husband that wife number 2 is mean. But wife number 1 is the one who thought of adding wife number 2.
Why would you add wife number 2?
Because wife number 1 couldn't get pregnant. They were childless. That was it. That was the whole deal.
So Sarai was basically saying, sleep with her, and then I get your baby.
Yeah, literally, get this woman pregnant and then I will take her child. Why would that be a good plan? What about that plan is good? Everything went wrong.
Nothing
So,
will go wrong.
obviously, marrying a second wife, not God's first, not his best plan. That's not what he wanted. But then the biggest problem of all was no one asked God what he wanted.
Yeah, no one
No
talked to
one
him.
talked to God all last week until the end. Until after all the damage is done and Hagar is sitting in the desert pregnant, like under the beating sun. Finally, not her calling out to God even, God goes to her. God
That's
goes
how
to her.
you know it's bad.
You know it's bad when God has to come talk to you.
Oh no, am I in trouble?
Yeah!
Am I in trouble?
You know this is funny, but it actually totally applies to your life. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But yeah, you know it's bad when your parents say, I need to talk to you.
That is
yeah.
true.
That's true.
It's so
Yeah.
much better, and most of us never realize it because it's always after the fact. It's so much better to go to them when it's about to get bad. Like literally, the best thing you could do when your brain goes, "Oh, I hope my parents don't find out," is literally just walk straight up to them and tell them. It's the best thing you can do. Because the worst thing is when they go to you and they say, "We need to talk." That's the worst thing.
We need to talk.
No, but what if
So much better if you go
what
to
if-
them.
What if they're about to ask you if you want like mac and cheese or a
No.
Oh,
Follow me on
it's
this.
like-
There is not a scenario where you get away with it that you should be considering. There is not that scenario. Okay. So you're saying, well, what if it was the best scenario where I get away with it? No. That is not the best scenario. You should not consider the scenario where you get away with it. All right, we're going to move on to chapter 17. We're going to see God has so much grace, it is illogical. It is unreasonable how gracious God can be. So check this out. Can you read us verses 1 and 2?
Adam was 99 years old when the Lord appeared to him again and said, I am God, all powerful. If you obey me and always do right, I will keep my
Solemn. It's a serious
I
promise.
hate that word.
So solemn promise means serious
That was
serious
not what-
promise.
Wait, hold on. I have some peace.
to you and gave you more descendants than can be counted.
Nice. Okay, what were you going to say?
I hate the word solemn, and you wanna know why?
I do.
Solomon.
Because I went to a spelling bee and that's the word I got out of.
Oh. That's rough. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
You can do spelling?
Huh?
He
You can spell?
Yes.
That's a
Kudos, Michael, you tried. All right, so
At least I survived 3 rounds.
when did
before I
Abram
lost.
start this journey? When did Abram
Alright.
first get the promise he was going to have kids?
When he was 20 years old.
Not 20.
40.
80.
40, 80, no.
83.
22.
75.
Ha.
I was so
So he was
close.
75. He was out in the desert, walking around, waiting for God's promise to come true. Did you finish your drawing? Yeah, Gene. Yeah, you know what you can do? You can find a real hard book and stick it under your paper. Pick out a big book that is the size of your paper.
Not a
You want me to hold on to this one? Okay, I'll keep this one with my Bible.
Or you can just move the paper around on a small book.
Oh, throw it away.
Big
I
room.
do not like the whole thing.
Hey, Jane, I'm gonna do it later because we're right in the middle of talking about the Bible. Okay? Look what she got you.
Ah.
She got you a big book.
Uh-huh.
Thanks, Elise. All right, so he was 75 when he went off into the desert, following God's promise, and God's promise still hasn't come true yet. He's still waiting on a kid. Remember last week when this whole Sarai-Hagar thing went down? He was 85 when he married Hagar, and then he was 86 by the time Hagar had her kid. So he'd already waited 10 years before his wife says, you know what, it's not going to happen. We got to hurry God's plan up. We got to make this thing happen. 10 years went by. Boom, they have a kid the wrong way. Now, from 86 to 99, how many years is that?
That's
13 years.
We can't do math on weekends.
I almost said
Actually,
23.
yeah,
That day off.
That was
Some of you guys, I saw the brain wiggling in there going, no, no. But someone said 13. You did it quick. That was
I'm
good.
doing this.
All right, so over 10 years from when he has his son the wrong way. Because he had a son. His name was Ishmael. But it wasn't the son that God promised.
Hey, what's his name again?
Ishmael.
Ishmael?
Yes.
Why can't it just be Israel?
That's a different guy. That actually would be really funny if you think about it, because God's promise was for the nation of Israel to come from his descendants. So when you say, why couldn't his name just be Israel? That's basically what Abram and Sarah were trying. They're like, oh yeah, God, you want us to have a kid. Just a sec. Don't look. And they go over here and they do their secret plan. They marry Hagar. They have a kid. Like, see? We did it! And God's like, hey, wait a second. That's not what I was talking about. All right, so then God comes to him and he says this. I love this. This is after almost 25 years of Abram waiting. God says, if you obey me and always do right. Another translation for this would be, if you're blameless.
The blameless.
Now that's crucial because no one's perfect, right? So always do right, that's kind of impossible. Blameless, though, just means you're innocent.
Killed to charge.
Now there's
It's
a
like
difference.
little kids.
There's a difference between perfect and innocent. Because little kids can poke you in the eye and have no idea they've even done it or that it was wrong to do it.
Or they can bite you.
Or, good example, back when she wasn't 3, because she's 3 now, back when she was like 6 months old, she had terror claws,
Oh,
and if you didn't like wrap her hands up in like a snuggly thing at night, she'd just claw her own face open.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you had to keep her nails trimmed, keep her hands wrapped up in her blanket, like she just. But she's like 6 months old. I mean,
like a
the
demon.
complete,
Posey.
peak of her intelligence at that point was like, I can look at you.
Oh my god.
Like I can choose to look at you.
She's getting mad.
That's like the peak of her intelligence. She doesn't have the ability to just not claw her face open.
Just look at you.
But when she would go to claw your face open, you knew she has no clue what she's doing. Because she's clawing her own face open. Of course she doesn't mean it when she claws my face open. Like, if she knew this was wrong, she would get it by now. Like, oh, this hurts, so I shouldn't do it to you. But obviously she didn't even understand what was happening, so she was totally innocent when she would scratch you. Does that make sense? It was still wrong, it was still bad to hurt another person, but she was innocent. She was innocent. So this is crucial. God's not asking Abram to be perfect. He's asking him to listen and be innocent. So making mistakes, it's going to happen, Abe. It's going to happen. But what I want, Abe, is for you to stop just walking away from me and doing your own thing. Just quit doing your own thing. Actually try and talk to me when you have an idea. Actually try and talk to me when you think you know what is best and you would like to find out.
Wait, try to
Yeah.
do.
Are you talking about Abraham Lincoln?
No.
No,
'Cause
you
keep
doofus.
saying Abe.
Yeah, that's short for other names besides
Oh my god.
Abraham Lincoln. Why would Abe be short for Lincoln?
Cause he's always called Honest Abe.
But I didn't say honest Abe. I just said Abe.
No, we put him in the freezer. And just, like,
A
take him out
wasn't
20
even
years from now.
honest, so why are you
What's your point? All right, move on. It is now your turn. Can you read us verses 3 through 6? Oh, we have a different translation today, so please read from the screen if you can.
Abram bowed with his face to the ground, and God said, I promise that you will be the father of many nations. That's why now change your name from Abram to Abraham. I will give you a lot of descendants, and in the future they will become great nations. Some of them will even be kings.
She's in the middle of reading, man. What the heck?
Oh my
Oi.
What's wrong?
So
Yeah,
rude.
but it's so rude.
Now you can do it.
She was trying to read for all of us, and you're just like, you're talking. What did she say? Do you know what she said? That's the bigger problem. Like, even if your voice is so quiet, you're not distracting anyone. You're distracted. All right, what happened here?
He bowed.
Changed his name.
Why?
Because Abram was bad at Abraham's good.
Wait, what?
Actually, it's funny you put it like that. It's kind of the opposite. This is an acknowledgement by God of who Abram has become. Because the name Abram and the name Abraham actually mean things. They're not just sounds. They actually have a meaning tied up in those sounds.
Like what?
I'll show you.
Noble father, father of many.
So this is God accepting Abram and who he is. It's not promoting him. He's not saying like, here's a present, I'm calling you a new name. It is literally, okay, I'm willing to continue working with you. You've screwed this plan up multiple times now, and I'm gonna forgive you. And I'm gonna keep working with you. So you went from noble, which was your old name, and was not true.
And was that true?
You've made it not true. Like, Abram has chosen to make it untrue. He's lived a life that is not noble.
Oh.
And then God names him father of many. And this is funny because originally in God's
I
plan,
think he understands it.
Abram was going to have one son.
He had many.
That's his punishment. He's going to have multiple children.
Not a punishment, a consequence. There's a difference.
Wait,
What's
isn't
that?
it
There's a
better to
difference.
have more
So,
children
like, for
than
instance,
just
I
one?
can't make you have more children.
Because then, like, you
Right? I can't make you.
children, like, can...
But you having more children might be a consequence of your actions.
Maybe.
Okay? I can't make you. This is where God's at.
Wait,
He has all
not
control
my
and all
bedroom.
power, but he's not
In
going
our
to
own bedroom,
squish
though.
someone's free will. He's going to let them make their choices.
Isn't it better to have more children, though?
Well, follow though. This isn't going from good thing to bad thing. That's not it exactly. This is going from
Bad things are good.
original plan adapted for your mistakes.
Plan B.
Does that make plan B? Yes, plan B.
Wait,
Now
wait,
God's
wait.
plan's still going to work, right? God's plan's going to work with plan A or plan B. But Abram got to pick. He could have had plan A.
He's weird.
He didn't pick plan A.
He played fantasy.
So God changed his name to Abraham. He's like, shoot.
Now, ironically, this is funny how this works out, okay? So, his first kid was with the wrong lady. That's Ishmael. Ishmael's going to go on to have...
Go on a date?
Ishmael's going to go on to have 12 kids.
Oh.
Starting a branching family with 12 branches, okay? And that's interesting because in God's plan, there's supposed to be 12 branches on the right family. And now Ishmael is mirroring that right family, but it's going to come later. Abraham's still going to have another kid. This other kid is going to eventually have 12 descendants that start the 12 tribes of Israel. So there's like a mirror image going on with the wrong son, right son. They're both going to have a 12 branch family coming out of them. And then, weirder still, after all of that, Abraham's going to have more kids.
Woo!
And they don't get numbered. They don't get named. They don't get special promises.
Wait, what?
They don't get special blessings.
Boo.
They don't get any inheritance at all.
You're not special at all, then.
No inheritance.
Just like me.
No things given to them by the blessing of God. They're just
You're born,
extra.
live by yourself.
So, what was God's original plan?
That would get
One kid, bajillions of blessings. Just crazy, ridiculous waterfalls of blessings.
One kid, but you're...
One family coming from Abraham. One group. What ended up happening? Two big groups, innumerable little groups, and those two big groups have been at war ever since.
Oh, wait, they're fighting... and they're, like, half siblings.
Essentially, yeah, they're like cousins. And they've been at war for thousands of years.
Fighting
It
their
hasn't
own
stopped.
relatives.
They're still fighting today.
What is it, Rome versus Israel?
No,
Oh my gosh.
it's Israel and the other Middle Eastern tribes. The Arab nations.
Israel versus...
They're still
Iran,
active.
Saudi Arabia, parts of Pakistan have some Middle Eastern blood.
Germany.
No, not Germany.
Germany's in, like, all the way on the other...
It's not even close to the Middle East.
Yeah,
Russia.
I mean, like, you know, you could get there
Well, that's
over
true.
food.
Israel versus North Korea.
Where the
Just-
heck
you're just
are
going
you
everywhere.
going?
Alright. So guys, remember, not good to bad. Plan A to plan B. God's still gonna make it work. It's not gonna be the same though. It's
No,
not gonna be the
it's
same.
gonna be worse.
So the new name, Father of Many. Now we move on, and there is a contingency to the promise. And this is interesting what he picks. He picks something that is hard to mess up, that's hard to fail on, because you only have to do it once in your whole life.
And then you fail.
And if you can just do it once in your whole life, then it counts. The promise stays intact.
I'm just gonna take
All right, go for it.
I will always keep the promise I have made to you and your descendants, because I am your God and their God. I will give you and them the land in which you are now a foreigner.
I'm sorry, you said foreigner? Or couldn't say foreigner?
I don't know that word.
Oh, okay. Foreigner means you're from another country. So he is now a foreigner in this country, but it will become his country.
Wait, so you're like an immigrant?
Yeah, he's an immigrant, but he'll take over too. It's weird.
I will give the whole land of
Canaan.
Canaan to your family forever.
So he's like the president?
I will be their God.
He was like seconds from being done. Okay. So, interestingly, no, the land doesn't ever become Abraham's while he's alive. It becomes his descendants. So he doesn't ever get to be El Presidente. That's not his thing. He is more like the, I know this is a bad analogy, but he's like Columbus, right? Columbus is always looked back to as like the guy who starts things. He brings the first few groups of people here, but he wasn't the president. He didn't rule. He wasn't in charge of the country in any way. That's more like what Abraham is. He's the forefather, but he didn't actually rule anything. So he's not the George Washington. Okay. Now we get into interesting waters.
Fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact.
The Native Americans were actually Vikings from the Middle East.
Oh my
They
god.
were Vikings.
I'm Native American.
Vikings actually arrived here 500 years before Christopher
That is
Columbus.
true.
That
And
part's true.
technically
That
there was
is
someone
true.
else before
How does that make them
Columbus
Native
that
Americans
discovered
from the
this
Middle
too.
East?
They just didn't give him any
But they
credit.
took no note about it. They didn't like say anything about it. They were just like, oh, there's land here. It stayed there for 1 year and then left.
Well, and there was
That's
other
because-
people, Viking-wise, who made it here before that, but they didn't stay at all. They checked it out and they went back and then they told Leif Erikson, and Leif Erikson's like, that sounds cool. We should go there.
Yeah, but the whole reason why they came here in the first place was to just get wood. That was it.
Just get timber.
Yeah, that
Well,
was it.
ironically, that was actually, as we
Well,
dig,
then we're just trying to get
and we
something.
do
That's not
archaeology.
the
I mean,
point.
technically, the whole reason why Christopher Columbus came here was because of gold.
Well, Christopher Columbus wasn't the first one to get here anyway.
Technically,
Like there's
technically-
someone else
The
that.
Vikings.
The mission.
I don't care. Keep your blah blah blah.
Wait,
blah.
I'm a Viking?
No.
No, you're not Viking.
Wait, did Columbus come here?
You're a Viking,
because
Harry.
they're-
The mission.
There was another English guy before
guys.
Columbus, or wherever Columbus came.
You're going in 15 wrong directions. Slow it down.
Yeah, kids.
Thank you.
You
Slow
too.
it down.
Christopher taught
Shh, no. Shh, no. It was a simple analogy. All I was saying was someone started it, but he wasn't really in charge. That was it. That's Abraham. What did God actually say to Abraham, though? This is interesting. He says, I will always keep the promise I have made to you.
So
Even after he
Abraham's
says, you gotta be good.
No.
If you have something worth saying, Weston, you can raise your hand. It's good.
No, this is stupid. Don't answer. Don't.
I'm not gonna, because I know it's stupid, because I heard it already. But you gotta do the filtering yourself. I shouldn't be the one filtering you. You need to be filtering you. Because you have good things to say, too. Alright, so, he says, I am your God, but he says, I'm gonna keep the promise always. Which is interesting because just a second ago, he says you gotta be good. You gotta actually be blameless. You gotta actually avoid guilt so that I can keep on working in your life and through you. And then he says, you know what though, I'm gonna always keep my promise. I'm gonna give you the whole land forever. He keeps using these infinite words, and God's basically the only person who can do that in a promise and it be true. If I promise you anything with an infinite in it, I will always be there for you. Nope. What about when I'm sick? What about when I'm like in the hospital? I'm not gonna be there for you. I'm on life support.
What about if I'm dead?
What if I die before you, right? Okay, so if I make a promise with an infinite, I'm wrong, basically.
I will be
I don't
there for
know
you until
that I
I'm
can do
sick,
that.
dead, or
I don't know that I can do that. But then God does it. Suddenly it's different because when He makes the promise. Shh, you didn't raise your hand. Shh. Thank you. Mid sentence here. When God makes the promise, He can see the future while He makes it. So He's not just making the promise being like, yeah, I'm real good, I guess I'll do it always. He's making that promise looking into the future going, yeah, I'll always do it. I checked. I will always keep this promise to you. I checked. I looked. It's true.
I cheated.
It's not cheating. No one said he couldn't look. It's only cheating if it's against the rules.
Technically he's the one who makes rules.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of hard to break your own rules when you're perfect and you know the future. You just wouldn't make the rule if you need to break it later.
Yeah, exactly. This rule only goes against you and not me.
Yeah.
Like
Well, there's actually a lot of that. Okay,
I
now
have
we get
one
into the weird
question.
stuff. Yes.
So does God have like a book of His promises? Cause like if He makes a promise, like this one, I will give the land of Canaan to your family forever. Does He like write that down in a book? So then like
In His own
2000
book, you mean?
Huh?
Like in His own book?
Yeah. Like,
For His purposes?
yeah. Like so then like in like 2,000 years, like if they're like being really bad, like can't He look back? Cause like I've heard like God like I think didn't He like let attackers come in, so like technically it wasn't their land anymore, but like part of it, but like a little sliver was still there. So God
Okay, I
kept
see what
His
you're getting at.
promise.
Yeah,
Like,
there's
God had,
actually
like,
a lot of
book promises.
instances where God
But,
tries
like-
to go back on this, not in a bad way, but in a disciplined way. So look at it like this. You turn 16, your parents say, hey, you know what, your grades, they're all B pluses. If you can get them up to A's, not A minus, if you can get them up to A's, you get a car next year. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. So you do it. You
Get
get
'em up
it
to
up to A's. You get the car.
And they can't afford it.
And you're on cloud 9. This is amazing. And then after you get the car, your grades start to slip. And your parents didn't say like, if your grades come back down, we're taking it away. But your grades do slip. And your parents go to you and they talk to you and they say, hey, here's the deal. The grades are slipping. We're thinking about taking the car away. Oh. Now they could do that, or they could wait until your grades slip like really bad, and they don't even warn you. They just take it. Now, why can they do that? They promised you a car.
They
They
bought
told
it.
you that you
Turkey
can have a
nuggets.
car if you got your grades up. Da da da. You got the car. How can they take it back?
Because they bought it.
Because
It's on their
the
name.
only reason you got the car because your grades were correct.
There it is, right there. You only got the blessing because you were keeping up your end of the bargain. You were only being blessed because you were walking in the plan they laid out for you. You start walking out of that plan, the blessing stays in the plan and you don't. It's not like God actually has to take the thing away from you. He is literally letting you walk away from it. That's the difference. When you're being rewarded for staying inside the plan, it's not even a punishment to take away the reward when you leave the plan. It's a consequence. You walk off the plan, the reward stays in the plan, you're gone. You walk.
Adios, amigos.
It's like you get out of school, you're like 36 and like grades down, give back car.
So here's the deal. God does keep the promise, and Weston, you're right. He starts to take it away, but only when they've walked out of the plan.
Wait,
Only when they're
He
grades
doesn't
are
even
down.
Oh no, not even starting to slip. This is the crazy thing about God. So God didn't just take away the land when they slipped the first time. When they start to slip, He sends messengers with reminders. Hey, remember how you're supposed to keep your grades up? So that's His first step. Like when they start to slip, it's just messengers. And it's not until hundreds of years of straight back-to-back failures that He punishes them. There's literally a point in their history where the country splits in two, and there's like a north and south half. And the north half gets bad faster, and the south half stays good for a while. So He punishes the north half first.
What up, North Korea? You're
They
being
get
bad.
knocked out of their
You're
land
punished.
first because they were bad quicker. And the southern half goes bad slower, and so He gives them more patience.
So he
He
gives
waits longer.
Brazil.
No, don't. You don't have to analogy countries. It's just countries. It's just countries. Weston, that's a really good way to actually dislocate his knee. Don't do that.
But God
I
doesn't-
like his knees located.
You do?
Not
You like
dislocated.
knees.
I already said came out
I like my knees.
to be well located.
Beautiful.
All right. You ready to read?
What up?
Weston bailed, like right when it was gonna be his turn.
I don't
Yeah, he
care.
did that on
You can
purpose.
you can flick his ear later.
Oh,
Oh,
You got the
yeah?
long one.
Oh wait. Geez.
Yeah, it's a crazy one.
Different.
It's the long one. It's the weird one.
Okay.
Stop.
Let's go
Let's
get
go.
it. Abraham, you and all future members of your family must promise to obey me. That's a mighty promise.
Mm-hmm.
As a sign that you are keeping this promise, you must circumcise every man and boy in your family. From now on, your family must circumcise every baby boy when he's 8 days old. You must even circumcise any man or boy you have as a slave. Ugh. Both these born in your homes and those you buy from foreigners. This will be a sign that my promise to you will last forever.
Oh my god.
Be quiet, I will eat you.
He's almost done. He's doing great.
Any man who isn't circumcised hasn't kept his promise to me and cannot be one of my people.
This is
Dun,
crazy.
dun,
This is
dun.
body modification.
This is weird.
It is weird. It's body modification.
Hey,
But this is where it comes from. Circumcision is still around
Weston.
today.
Yes,
God
it is.
invented it.
holy Jesus!
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
It's almost sunrise on the 8th day. We gotta hurry up and name these kids.
Is the naming relevant to all this?
Well, didn't it say like you have to circumcise
Yeah, we were.
all like every kid on the 8th day?
Weston.
Does that mean like name them and take care of them?
Well, the
No,
naming
that
could
does
happen
not mean
whenever.
that. That does not mean that.
The naming could happen at any point. It has nothing to do with this.
No,
It's the 8th.
that's
Are you
not
guys
what
talking about
circumcised
babies?
means.
Yes.
Yeah, we were
You
talking
missed out
about.
on reading this lovely verse.
We're talking
We
about
were,
how
we
you
were
have to
just
be
talking about how
circumcised
you
at 8 years
bailed your
old.
verse.
So you can have the next verse.
Oh no.
He got to read yours
Like this
because you were
ear.
gone. So
Because he
was
skipped
annoyed.
his-
He got the longest, weirdest one. Okay.
I got the
strange
circumcised
verse.
one.
So oh no. That looks like an ear piercer of some kind. A tongue piercer?
I win.
Alright. So this
I'll
sign
get you back.
is peculiar, but what is crucial about it is two things. Okay. One
watch
quality
your
of
butt.
this sign is interesting in that it's permanent. There's no going back on this. Now, if God just said, obey me, and that's the sign, that you guys are all really good people and you're nice, well, what happens when you slip up? What happens when someone makes you lose your patience?
Ha! You suck.
Are you suddenly going to lose God's promise? You're going to have to leave the land because you were bad?
Yeah,
No,
but
God
then-
says, you know what? Let's make this even easier. We're going to make this something that's permanent. We'll make it something you can do while they're still a baby. They don't even have to try. They can literally be part of the promise from when they're innocent all the way through the rest of their life. Basically what you're ending up with, it's a contract you can't break.
Actually, you can.
You could, but really it's not up to you, right? It's your parents entering you into this contract. So like you don't have a chance to mess up is what God's doing here. He's creating the timing so that you can't make the mistake that breaks the contract. Someone else would have to do it for you.
He broke the contract.
Like about the parent thing, what if your parents lie to you?
Lied to you?
Oh,
Like you
jeez.
say, I'll get you to the car. Once I have good grades, they say
Oh my
you're just
gosh.
You're still stuck on the car analogy?
kidding.
Okay. We're so past the car analogy. We're so far past it.
You don't
Okay.
know what that is.
Alright, here we go. 15 through 16. Weston!
I want
you
to do
read
it
this
again. No, he skipped it. He doesn't get one.
Wait.
It's his fault.
Wait, he was here. Then when he went to the back of the line,
He
so
doesn't
would
get
read
one.
last.
You guys want him to not read?
Yeah, he
Yes.
doesn't
Yeah.
get one.
Yeah.
We might run out of verses as we go through everyone.
Oh
yeah,
Wait,
that
make him
doesn't-
read all of
doesn't-
them.
Oh yeah, he gets all of them
left
instead.
on-
Actually,
He left on purpose and then what right
yeah,
there.
he knew there was
Reading
gonna
the
be a
Bible
weird.
verses is not a punishment, it's not a reward, it's a duty.
What?
It's something you do. It's something you do for God.
Well,
So,
his duty is.
you guys shush. I'm asking Weston,
I
please
forgot.
read these verses.
Abraham,
Booty.
your wife's name will now be Sarah instead of Sarai. I will bless her, and you will have a son by her. She will become the mother of nations, and some of her descendants
He
will
sounds like a
even
baby.
be king.
Why does he sound like a baby?
Why do you look like a baby?
I love
Alright,
that.
guys,
What you
here
talking
we
about?
go. Real simple name modification for Sarah. She went from being Sarai, which is literally their
Princess.
word for princess.
She's the princess of
Hey,
all.
hey.
No, this makes sense. Her beauty was so, I don't know, famous, so extreme
She was
that
so hot.
that people were literally willing to kill for her.
So,
So her name being Princess was fitting. She had this beautiful name, and then yeah, she gets renamed to Princess of Many. Now that's different than Abraham's, right? Because Abraham's name was noble father and then father of many, so that means you have many descendants, right? But being the
Wait a
princess of
minute.
many doesn't mean you have many descendants.
Wait a minute.
How do you be the princess of many?
If
But
she's a
having the
princess,
kid.
doesn't she have to be like Abraham's daughter?
What? No. They're married.
Princess. The word princess.
Yeah. He didn't get a name that meant king. He's not the king. There's no hierarchy in the naming. Because he was father. He wasn't king or prince.
I hate
He's
that.
just father. Yes.
So now that Abraham knows that his wife is also Princess May, he's like, oh, double shoot.
Oh,
This is
double
double
shoot.
shoot.
Double whammy.
Double shoot.
It's
Having
definitely-
many kids was not a punishment. Okay, we've covered that. All right. So how can she be the princess of many? How would you be a princess in the first place?
Cause you're
What
under.
would be the qualifications?
You
You're
have
under-
to be
forward.
the daughter of a king and queen.
Okay, royal bloodline, right?
Wait,
Okay.
she's the daughter.
What if there's no people in your country? Are you really a princess?
No.
Yes,
Queen.
yes.
Don't you kind of have to have a country to be over?
Not in God's way.
I mean, if you're royal, but there's no country that you're royalty of, you're really not royalty.
Hey, he did say.
It's just kind of a fancy title at that point.
He did say they're gonna have their own country.
That's true, but if you're a princess, you're not like a multi-princess just for being the princess of a country. You would have to be the princess of multiple countries. And that's a weird thing. Like, that shouldn't be. In most systems, you're royal in one country. And then, maybe through some, like, royal marriage where, like, you're the princess of Spain and you go marry the prince of England or something. And then you're, like, a princess in two countries. You're a princess in Spain and you're a princess in England. But it doesn't even say that. It doesn't say, like, two princess or princess times two. It says princess of many. This literally means she's royalty in many countries' family lines. So this isn't directly calling her a mother, but essentially what it means is her descendants are going to form royalty multiple times over. She's going to be looked back on by her descendants as a princess, and not just in one country, not just from one branch of the family tree.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy? And it's true. It's actually true. You look at her from the Jewish perspective, she is the matriarch. That means like female relative way back. So she's the matriarch of all of the families of Israel. Whether it be the very first king from the tribe of Benjamin or all the subsequent kings from the tribe of Judah, she is the female ancestor of all those. Or weirdly, this one's double weird, guys, she's even looked to as an ancestor by the Arabs who came from Ishmael.
Ollie.
Which is strange when you think about it, because Ishmael wasn't her child. Ishmael was Hagar's child. But even Ishmael's descendants look back to Sarah, and it's through two things, okay? Spiritual ancestry, meaning she's the woman of faith, and then also because her kid's kid, her son's son, ends up marrying one of Ishmael's son's daughters. So the Ishmael side of the family and her side of the family end up marrying into each other later on, like 2 generations down.
Whoa.
So like second cousin marries a second cousin, something like that. It's not. It's like only a half cousin, so it's like a second half
No,
cousin.
they actually have siblings.
No, because it's 2 generations down. And half, because it wasn't
Never
Abraham
mind.
and Sarah both times. It was Abraham and Hagar on one side and Abraham and Sarah on the other side of the family tree. So
I'm looking
half
now.
and 2 generations removed. Anyways, yeah. So Esau marries one of Ishmael's granddaughters.
To the Bible.
All right. So we also see in the Muslim faith. Okay. We also see in their faith, they look back to Abraham as the starter of their religion, weirdly. Even though he had nothing to do with it, they look back to him, and they look back to Sarai too, as someone chosen of God, someone who is faithful to God. And so she's looked at from them as a princess. Then you get into Christianity, and in the New Testament, even there, Sarai's held up as someone cool who had faith even back then. So she's looked at as a form of royalty by different countries, different religions.
Banana bread with chocolate chips on it.
Oh, some good stuff right there.
Hey, you should give me some bite.
You flicked him in the ear.
Is he
I mean,
with that?
Hey, he tried to pierce
I'm
me.
just
He
saying,
stepped on me.
you know,
Yeah,
you're
you
in
said I
a
could.
war. You don't ask for supplies from the other side.
Stepped on me.
But
Wait, what?
that was a punishment for what he did first.
And you said I could.
That's true.
I'll get my picture back.
Still time to be quiet and stop talking. But I do need someone to read.
Abraham bowed.
Nope, not you. You.
Ankle.
Nice hair there, dude.
Hey guys, time to read.
Bowed with his face to the ground and thought, I am almost 100 years old. How can I become a father? And Sarah is 90. How can she have a child? So he started laughing. Then he asked God, why not let Ishmael inherit what you have promised me?
Can you imagine that scene? Abraham is in front of God. He's totally humbled. He and Sarah's name are getting changed to Plan B, Abraham and Sarah. And he's bowing down to God, and it dawns on him. Dude, I'm like 100. My wife is like 90. And instead of him questioning God in like the normal sense of, God, are you crazy? Because a lot of people have done that throughout the ages. Instead, he has that quiet chuckle moment of, I'm too old for this. And he starts laughing. And so then he answers God. He says, God, are you sure about this? This doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem right. I am too old for this. Then he just kind of asks God, couldn't we just pick Ishmael? I know that's not your plan A. We're already moving in plan B direction. What if we just make Ishmael the promise? I know that's not what you meant.
So
I
let's
know
make
that's not what you
plan
were
C.
trying for. But why don't we just do that? It's so much easier. He's already born. At this point, he's like a teenager. He's like your age.
So
Can't we
plan
just
C.
pick Ishmael? It'd be so much easier. Yeah.
Plan C.
Isn't this where Son of Laughter comes?
Ooh, no. That's yet future still.
Ah,
So
my
Isaac
ankle.
isn't made yet?
No, Isaac isn't born yet. He's not named yet.
Isaac was like all the way.
He's coming next. He's the kid of promise.
I suck.
Isaac.
I suck.
No. It's a new backpack from Apple. No. So the name actually doesn't come from this moment. It comes from a similar moment, but it's Sarah.
Sorry,
She has a moment where her name just got changed. She has a moment where she gets told you're going to be a mom, but remember she's 90, and she has basically the same reaction. And
How the heck can I be a mother when I'm 90 years old?
And that's where the name comes
A
from.
mother from another
But that is
mother.
what the name means. So, anyways, it's actually your turn to read. So,
But God answered, no, you and Sarah will have a son. His name will be Isaac. I was right, Isaac. And I will make a everlasting promise to him and his descendants.
so this is key. God hasn't always said the promise this way. Oftentimes he says stuff like, Abram, you're going to have many descendants.
No, but no, he started with
No!
Sometimes he says,
No!
hey guys. Sometimes he says you're going to have many descendants. Sometimes he says you're going to have so many kids, you won't be able to count them all. But rarely has he said, you and Sarah are going to have a kid. It hasn't been that specific, that nitty-gritty before.
You should just say
He's
you
usually
did.
talking about long-term, big outcomes down the road. You'll have a whole country come from your descendants. You'll have all this stuff. All this land will be your descendants. Big stuff, big stuff, big stuff. Now he's getting nitty-gritty. He says, no. You don't get it. You plus Sarah, son. You plus Sarah equals son. That's the formula, Abram. Quit trying to modify it. Quit trying to change it. We're on plan B now, but the plan still involves you plus Sarah equals son. That part hasn't changed. So there are times where God is willing to move his plan around you or let you move around inside his plan. But that doesn't mean he's actually going to change what he wants. Does that make sense? even if God's willing to give you grace and let you wiggle around in the plan and not quite follow it exactly, he still gets what he wants. He's not going to just change the goal because you're disobedient. He's not just going to change the outcome because you don't like it. He still gets what he wants. And he wanted it to be Abram's first wife. So that's what's going to happen. All right, your turn to read.
Was it his?
No.
Now it's your turn, you monkey.
Hey, no names. Serious.
Look like donkey.
Thank you.
Oh, you
Oh,
left
come on,
and
man.
wanted to
Come on, I'm
miss
defending
it.
your honor over here.
Okay, I have prayer what you asked me to do for Ishmael. And so I will bless him with many descendants. He will be the father of 12 princes.
Sorry, I looked away.
Princes, right?
Mhm.
And I'll make his family a great nation. But your son Isaac will be born about this time of year, this next year. And the promise I am making to you and your family will be for him and his descendants forever. God finished speaking to Abraham and then
left.
left.
Good job. I know it's a really hard word, left. Alright, so he finishes it up and he gives him this little detail. I love this. He will be the father of 12 princes. Now, does anybody know how many kids Isaac had?
12.
Nope.
What?
14.
Nope.
70.
Wait, I
Why?
32.
How many kids did Isaac have?
13. 1.
199.
2.
13.
2. So, one of the things you guys got to remember when you're reading the Bible is it wasn't written in English. The guys who wrote it lived so long ago, English didn't even exist yet. Okay? So they did not write it in English. This book was written in ancient Hebrew. Ancient Hebrew. This is likely the first written alphabetical language on the planet.
A, B, C, E, F, G.
Older than the language in Phoenicia, almost as old as hieroglyphics. But hieroglyphics, you got to remember, is a story language where you paint a picture of the story. It's not an alphabetical language. You don't get to sit there and write out words and sentences in hieroglyphics. It doesn't work. So this was written in quite possibly the oldest alphabetical language on the planet.
Oh.
So sometimes when you read it in English, the guys who translated that book for you, they make choices to try and make it easier for you to read it. So one of the choices here is he says he'll be the father of 12 princes, but the original language is not dad. It's not father.
Daddy. Oh.
It means it wasn't daddy either. I'm not actually
Daddy.
sure.
Daddy.
I'm not actually sure how that was funny in any way. Y'all good?
Look at that.
Okay. The word here is actually just the past
Father.
male relative. It's not father. It's. I don't even know if we have the right word for this, but like male ancestors. That's it. It could mean father, grandfather, great grandfather. It doesn't actually have anything to do with that. Are you still trying to make jokes in the middle of a sentence? In the middle of a sentence, trying to make jokes?
He's trying to help.
Think about that. There's nothing to call that except rude. It's the only word for that.
Or annoying.
So Ruby thing.
I like having the conversation, Seth. I like having the conversation where you get to talk, I get to talk. But if you're in the middle of a sentence and I make a joke about what you're saying, how would you take it?
Funny.
To cut you off in the middle of a sentence with a joke?
Yes, you should try that sometime.
It's actually
Yeah,
really
you should
fun.
say that.
I don't feel like being that rude to you guys.
It's not real, it's funny.
Yeah, it was
To
like,
us,
it was,
to us it is.
To cut someone off in the middle of a sentence with anything is rude.
but what if I said fluff nugget?
To cut someone off by saying fluff nugget?
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so
Okay. I can't say I get it.
I know you did that when you were younger.
I still cut people off, but it's still rude.
Yes.
I'm not perfect. I can't claim to not cut people off.
The
That's
way
not
like-
true. I just would like to teach you better than to cut people off in mid-sentence.
Yeah, dude. Every name is.
His name is Phil.
Alright. So God leaves. He leaves him with the details of the promise. And then we get to our last little section today. Michael, you're
Wes.
reading.
I'm not Weston. That's
I know, he thought it was Weston's turn, but
His
it's
name
not,
is
it's
Michael.
Michael.
my goal. Okay.
Michael.
On that same day, Abraham obeyed God by circumcising Ishmael. Abraham was also circumcised,
And so were.
were all the other men and boys in his household, including his servants and slaves. He was 99 years old at the time, and his son Ishmael was 13.
13.
Oh my God.
So they enter into the promise.
Michael.
The whole covenant starts right here. It's all before Isaac is born. And now that he's entered into the promise like this, we're going to see it's just under a year before Sarah becomes pregnant. And Sarah is going to have a son. The promise is going to be fulfilled. Everything is going to come through son number 2, Isaac. But the son number 2 thing, this goes all the way back to the beginning, and yet it keeps on going. God has this really interesting pattern he sets all the way back with Adam and Eve and their kids. And we're going to see it come through here. It comes through in the next generation. That the man's custom, humans' way of looking at things is that the oldest is the greatest. The biggest is the greatest. The strongest is the greatest. The most is the better.
So they brought
That's like the normal
brains?
human way of looking at things. Bigger, better, stronger, better, faster, better.
I'm fast.
Everything is better when it's greater. And God just keeps flipping this on its head. With Adam and Eve, you get not son 1, but son 2 being the promised kid. And then son 1 kills son 2. God gives him a third one and says, okay, it's going to be him now.
Wait, Isaac gets killed by Ishmael.
Adam and Eve. I was going back to Cain, Abel, and Seth. But in a similar instance here, Ishmael and Isaac are not friends. They fight. And even though Ishmael's the older son, all the blessing, all the promise lands on Isaac, son 2. Then Isaac has 2 kids, and the older should be in charge, should get all the blessing. Everything should go through the older one. But then
So
God
if
says,
that's a good-
nope, son 2. Son 2 gets it all. Son 2 is going
That's
to be
why
one
second is
promise.
the best.
It's interesting how God does this. But he keeps doing it. And that's not even every one.
Second's the best.
Weston, that wasn't helpful in any way.
Yeah, bro.
Pop my finger.
That wasn't helpful either.
This isn't even the last time we're going to see it. This next generation, Isaac's kids, it happens again, but then it happens again. Down the line and down the line and down the line. Why does God do this? Why does God pick second place and say, I pick you, you're my favorite. I'm going to bless you.
Because first was second best.
Anyone know?
I'm not,
Because God could pick anyone. God could pick anyone. And if he picks the strongest, greatest, biggest, most impressive, smartest one, and everyone sees that person succeed and do the best and be great, guess who they praise?
The third one.
The big strong one. If God picks the big strong one who's smart and fast and does everything best, and they do well, everyone just looks at the person and goes, well, that makes sense.
Oh my gosh.
No one ever stops to think about it. But if God picks second best, second fastest, second smartest,
We're gonna stop and think about it like
they'll
that.
be like, how did he do that? That doesn't make any sense. How did this work? Why does this work? And that's the great thing. Right there, when anyone actually has to stop and go, wait, why did that happen? Then there's a chance they will find God in that moment, in that instance, in what is going on. Just through the simple act of, wait, why is it like that? Asking the question. And so God does this, and he does other things too, not just picking second last. He does a bunch of things purely so that you will ask, wait, why is that like that? Just so you have another chance to get closer to him. Why did God make so many stars? Pretty simple. So you would ask, why did he make so many stars?
Why did he
Why
make
did
the
he
Big
make
Dipper?
humans?
So simple. Yeah, Seth.
Yeah, so, Haggai was second wife.
Yeah?
Sarai was first wife, yet God
Sarah.
went to Haggai.
True. Very, very true. So remember, this isn't a rule God has made. He didn't make a rule that says, I will pick the second. Okay? But he does do types. He does like to make molds and then reuse them over and over again. But in this second one, not just least, because least comes up a bunch too, But in the terms of second, it's always sons.
How about girls?
Your
Second
father.
son. Well, he has different models for the girls. He has different molds that he'll reuse over and over again in different situations. With sons, it's second. That's where it ends. There's not like second best house, second best river, second best boat, second best wife, second like those don't exist. The second mold that he reuses is just for sons. Does that make sense? This isn't a one size fits all thing that God does.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yo.
Okay.
In the Bible, does it ever talk about a girl being born?
Oh yeah, totally.
Who?
Wait, why would you want to know?
2 generations down.
Because he's weird.
Two generations down, we actually get to hear about the sisters. When it's the 12 brothers, they have 2 sisters, and we get to hear about them.
He's
We're
gonna
not
be
there yet,
excited.
but yes, the answer is yes. So, okay. That's it for today. Let's wrap up. You guys gotta go.
Okay,
Let's go.
Let's pray.
I go rest and pray.
Lord, I just ask that you would help these middle school students to take something you've taught them today with them. Just keep something buried in their heart. That if nothing else, Lord, just may it be that you're gracious, and when you make a promise, you intend to keep it even if we can't. So help us, Lord, to just enjoy that grace that you have for us, that even when we mess up, you're still there for us. Even when we walk off of your promise and outside your plan, you're waiting for us to come back. And you wait with open arms. Help us to remember that. You've used imperfect people since the beginning, and you're still willing to use imperfect people. We thank you, Lord, for that. We thank you for your promises. We pray all these things in your name, Jesus. Amen. Love you guys. Girls, there is a Nerf night coming up. I don't know if you saw the flyer at the kitchen.
Hey, where? What?
See the flyer. Just look at it. It's a girls only event, so just go look at it.
I like Nerf gun.
Also, there's a parents meeting coming up. If your parents don't know about it, grab them the flyer.
Michael.
It's also on the kitchen counter right there.
No,
I just eat flyers.
Bye bye.
Come here.
I want to eat
Yes,
flyers.
sir. I think
Michael, come here.
so typically the rule has been electronic distractions.
But instead
I could take my 5 Rubik's cubes at my house and put them in the bucket.
start crying. Oh, I wonder if
I'm
that
not-
works. Oh wait, what the heck? Wait.
Come on, Daniel.
Oh, I was on the bottom of this. I'm at the
That's
top.
unfair.
Yay.
How was it?
Because that's not electrical. I could bring my next
I'm gonna
time.
give him a pass this time.
What?
Fine, next time I'm coming here, I'm gonna bring 7 Rubik's cubes.
You can only put one thing in there.
So, yes, not last week, 2 weeks ago, I forgot to bring my Bible back to my house.
Oh no.
It's small.
Is it a little leather bound one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's over here.
I'll bring my phone from another.
super strong, and then the last 2, maybe 3 strings are coming at heavy, like really strong chords. But you're doing like really big open sounding strings. All notes coming in too.
Yeah, you just gotta, because there's a certain note being.
That's what I mean.
So-
Though, is there a name for big heavy strums and a little pick of the note?
I have no idea.
I like it though.
Why don't you do worship? I do.
He does. He's good. We
I-
do let junior hires lead junior hires in worship, but we're hesitant and we're careful about it. Have you ever seen like at a talent show or anything, like where a kid gets up in front of kids his own age?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where there's like you're walking on a knife edge before they will mock you. Like they're only gonna wait a second to see if you're amazing, and then if you're not what they were thinking you were gonna be, they mock you. If he goes down and leads worship for like anyone younger than him, they treat him like an adult. And then he comes up here and it's a knife's edge. So it's tricky. Usually if we let junior hires lead worship in front of other junior hires, they're on a team with an adult. Because then if someone's gonna fall off that knife's edge, they would have to do what they're gonna do to everyone on stage. Not just the one junior hire that's up there. So it's tricky. And this isn't something like we just do because we think it's best, it's because we've done it and seen it fail horribly. We're like talented musicians who are great worship leaders get up on stage and the kids just talk and laugh at them like they're not even there. It's like, that's not fair to the worship leader even, because they're doing a really good job. And like, it's literally as simple as, oh, they're older than me, and suddenly like the brain changes. It's dumb, but it's true. So, yeah, I'd love for Weston to lead worship more, but I don't want him to be up there alone. I want to be up there with the adult worship leaders so that he has just that backup, so that he's not a target while he's leading worship.
Yeah, Lexi said next time she plays, I can play with her, but for like the past month, I haven't been.
So, well, and then she hasn't either. So this week is first Sunday. She's always downstairs instead of upstairs on first Sundays of the month. And then the week before and the week before, she was leading worship at someone else's church. She was a guest worship leader at a different church. So this week, last week, and the week before, all 3, she's not here. Okay, I'm gonna run now that we're in between services. Pretty cool. That's a walking note. So when you were playing with the big strum and then the bits of chords down at the bottom, it's like you had a walking bass line while you were continuing to play chords. Does that make sense? Because a walking bass line is pretty common in a lot of songs, where literally the bass is played like a percussion instrument. You don't change the note, you just go boom, 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 boom. And by itself, it's annoying and dumb, and no one likes it. But you layer stuff on top of it, and a walking bass line is fantastic. Sam. Because there's a firefly named Sam.
Huh.
Sam in a jar and Sam in that game.